Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to today's session in our Elevate webinar series. We're excited to bring you the top three performing sessions from our Elevate conference in San Diego in October. They were so well received that we decided that we had to bring them back so everyone can benefit from them. Just a couple of housekeeping throughout the session. You can submit your questions for Val in the chat. You can raise your hand. You can speak if you want, and we're also going to make some time for Q&A at the end as well. There's still time to register for the last webinar in our series, which is Product Roadmap with Mark Bridger and John Fulton. So head over to our website to register for that. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll get started. Thanks, Val.
Okay. Thank you so much. Hopefully you could all hear me fine. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. I'm guessing you could all see it. Carolyn, can you give me a thumbs up if you could see it? Great. So yeah, I'm gonna first introduce my colleague, Carolyn. We're gonna tag team the presentation here for questions and just be able to get to everything together, right? So as you know, today's session will be how to prevent problematic solutions. So practical ways to prevent those. The session is just about small configuration choices that can make a huge difference in just the data quality, save your time, and of course, make applicants and you very happy. So let's get started. Why does this matter, right? Problematic solutions can create real pain points. They waste your time. They delay reviews. They, of course, frustrate some applicants and just overall pollute your data. So when we prevent those issues at the start of the progress and the process, sorry, we're not only improving the efficiency, but we're also protecting just the integrity of your data and, of course, strengthening that applicant's trust. So that way we are not caught in this loop of errors, right? So that's why we thought it was important to just dedicate a session on how to prevent these errors, again, at the beginning, so that we catch it early on, right? So as you know, you can raise your hand in the webinar. So I just wanted to see hands up if you've ever just chased applicants in general for maybe the right budget file or missing data or just anything at all that you, after the application has been submitted, you probably have to just send it back and then just correct that information. We're sure that most of you have been there, or if not, hopefully not most of you, but a good number of our clients have just raised with us that they have to just keep chasing applicants and then just again be caught up on this, right? So today we are going to try to fix those, how to stop those problems before they even reach you, and get that straightened up, right? So the common issues that we see when we mean what is a problematic solution or submission, sorry, what does that really mean? So these are the top four common issues in those problematic applications. So we see incomplete data, basically just critical fields that are needed that are left blank. Some formatting errors as well. So think dates, currency, emails that are being entered inconsistently. Another big one is duplicates, right? So we have duplicate submissions, the same applicant applying basically multiple times for the same grant from the same call. And again, we're stuck with this, 4 applications coming from John Doe. And then just content issues, overall content issues. So overly long answers, right? Unclear responses. Each of these just adds friction for both the applicants and the reviewers or staff. The good news is that every one of these can be prevented by with simple configuration, which is what we're going to go through today. Just a quick shout out. What's the most common mistake that you see in your applications? And again, feel free to pop this in the chat. We are trying to make this more dynamic. So if you have anything that you sort of want to call out, you could also go off mute and just sort of shout it out. But I just want to start spotting those early so that we know where or which exact tool or configuration may fit. Just going to give it a couple minutes if you want to just sort of write it out. Make sure I find the Q&A. Great. So think of those, everything that you can sort of think when it comes to an error or just a mistake. I want to keep those in mind so that as we go through the solutions, you could sort of say, okay, this solves X and Y, right? So let's get into the actual practical part, right? So the concrete tips inside SmartSimple that can help you prevent those mistakes automatically. The first one would be smart check validations. So I hope some of you are familiar with these terms, smart check validations. They're basically one of our most powerful tools. It runs validations in real time to make sure that a field is completed correctly before the applicant can move forward, right? Think of it as like a friendly checkpoint, right? To say, wait, your budget doesn't balance, or wait, that field format is invalid or isn't what I'm expecting. And the goal is to just help the applicants succeed by catching those errors early. So I've added some other examples in the screen, but basically it's just that checkpoint to raise the hand and then not even allowing the applicant to continue to the next step, to go to the next status, right? To see the next page. Basically, it just stops them. And then until that error is not corrected, then they basically can't move on, right? We can take those validations, those smart check validations, a step further by tying them to call level rules, right? For example, if one of your, let's say you have 10 different calls, right? If one of those calls required a specific project start date or a specific funding limit, those same rules can basically cascade down automatically into every associated application to that specific call, right? So this is great because if there are different rules across your different calls, you can specify them from the call form itself and then have them correctly positively affect the applications under each one of them, right? So that I've added some screenshots to make it more visual on the screen. So as you can see, I can say in the call, okay, so the grant amounts here for this call are going to be fixed. And then there's going to be a maximum of, or this is how much we're going to grant, 500,000, right? If in the application I say, well, I'm actually requesting 550,000, then I'm going to get a submission failed and say, the amount requested cannot exceed 500, right? And this, by having it be like a field, again, it gives me the flexibility so that if I have 10 different calls, I can change this number according to my specific rules, right? So again, it's just this quick configuration change that you can do in the call level that will cascade down to those applications, right? Some more examples here for that specific use case would be maybe the grant period. So again, if you have multiple calls, you can say in the call, well, this is going to be a grant period of 2 years, right? And then in the application, if the applicant says, actually, it's going to be from 2024 to 2026. Obviously, in this case, that's more than 2 years. I've specified 25 months, and then I would get a submission failed message like this one where it says project duration should only be 24 months, and then I've specified 26, right? Sorry, 25. So that's, again, another use case of how validations from a call level can be, let's say, beneficial for you so that you could basically save the time and having to configure this behind the scenes. Obviously, for smart check validations, we could also do it in like an individual field in the application form. Like I said, format, just length, anything you want that could also be applied. But we could take it a step further by adding these fields basically in the call. So that would be smart check validations. If we go to the next slide, another easy win we can take from the call configuration is populating application fields directly from the call. So not only validating them, but also populating the actual field from the call, right? So this saves them time, reduce also typos. That's another big one. So not having those typos show up, and then keeps your data aligned, right? So for example, the screenshots that you see on screen are for applicant instructions, right? So those can vary from call to call, as you can imagine. So having a field on each call can be very helpful to spell those out. So what I input in the field that says applicant instructions in the call is going to then reflect as an instruction box in the actual application fields. And that could be right on top, right? So when the applicant hits apply, they'll see this type of box where it says, these are the instructions for this specific call, right? So again, this is very, very beneficial, especially if you have more than one call or you have to sort of change those instructions for any reason, right? So that would be a great example of that. The apply button. The apply button can also work in your favor. Why? Because you can restrict who's allowed to apply to any call. For example, only organizations with approved status, right? Or maybe only active users. This is if you have statuses for contacts and organizations, which is something that you can do in SmartSimple. So you can block organizations that are maybe pending review or applicants that are flagged as declined, or any other status that you basically don't want orgs or contacts to apply. You can say here in the visibility options of the apply button to deny user status. So basically deny the view for the apply button. In this case, we have included it for inactive or declined users. And then for organization status, same thing, right? So all the organizations that are non-compliant or inactive won't basically be able to even apply to our grants, right? And then you could also include a deny tooltip so that when they try to hover to that apply button, you'll see a screenshot here, it will show up the message that you have inputted in that deny tooltip section, right? So basically, it's a quick and easy win for that apply button. And then you could also take it a step further and block duplicates so that you never get multiple submissions from the same applicant, right? That single setting can save days of cleanup later, because by toggling any of these, you could say, okay, I'm blocking repeat applications by the same applicant and org, and that is just a toggle that you have to do in your system for that apply button. So this ensures that only eligible and unique applications move forward. Another thing that you could do for mandatory or in the actual field, is enforce mandatory validation. So this is pretty simple, and I'm guessing most of you have them, but we know that little red star basically means that a field is mandatory, right? So this is the simplest, but honestly most effective way to prevent incomplete submissions. Think about key fields like requested amount, start date, project description, things that are for you obviously like non-negotiable, let's say, and that without them we can't move forward anyway, right? So requiring them up front just ensures that completeness before the applicant hits submit, right? So just it's always worth just going over your forms and making sure that that toggle is on for the validation of fields that are not negotiable. Another thing that we could do on fields themselves are instruction boxes. It sounds very standard, but most of our clients don't really leverage instructions, and it can be, again, very, very useful because it guides the applicant in context, right? So instead of just a long separate manual or FAQ or something, you can display short and targeted instructions right next to the question, right? So this reduces misinterpretation. It saves your time clarifying those expectations later. And again, those can be easily changed if for any reasons requirements ask you to do so. So you'll see here example for the project description that can be very broad, right? So now we're saying here, this should describe the project and what exactly it is that you're trying to achieve. Something else that we could do on fields is tooltips. So similar to the instruction boxes, tooltips appear right next to the right side of the field, right? In this sort of question mark that you see here, and it provides, we call them our micro helpers, just because that small I can carry huge value. It tells applicants what kind of response you're expecting, what to avoid, or maybe what a good answer looks like. We have clients maybe leverage it for like examples, like I said, of something that they're sort of looking for. And then we just could use them for short clarifications, and they keep the form also clean without those big instruction boxes, especially if you want to have like a longer text. It keeps the forms clean, but still informative, of course, because hovering on top of that will let us sort of navigate that better. More things that we can do on fields themselves are word counts, right? So word or character limits keep answers usable, right? Because a 2,000 word essay might be interesting, but it's impossible to compare across applications. So by limiting that word count, you make the review process just more consistent and fair, right? So a great example is just, max 500 words for project description. And then as the applicants type, you can see the amount of words that they have left, right? So we have the option to show the counter and then also count the words. And again, this is in the actual field itself, the configuration of that field. And you could say what's the minimum, the maximum length, and then even if they exceed that that number, let's say, of words, you can include a message that will say, keep the explanation to X amount of words or less. Again, short, easy wins that are very valuable and that we want to highlight that we're able to do them in SmartSimple. Standardized answers. So this is one of my favorite just ways to reduce the problematic solutions, because wherever possible, let's try to replace the free text with standardized choices. This not only helps problematic solutions, but honestly, reporting later, right? So think drop downs, radio buttons, checkboxes. It just reduces the ambiguity and ensures that consistent reporting and makes data analysis far easier early on. The amount of times that we have just replaced a box that, clients sometimes write, let's say we're doing a region list. Instead of letting people just type Europe, EU, European Union, that again are all the same thing, but just giving them those standardized answers is going to help us have all the applicants answer the same thing when they actually mean the same thing, right? So again, I'm showing some examples here on the screenshot where it's just a project demographics instead of just having them sort of a free text where they can write it out. You'll see here that it's a checkbox where you can select one or more options. Attachment requirements. So file uploads are another area where problems sometimes sneaks in. You can control what applicants upload by restricting file types, setting size limits, and just requiring specific documents, right? So this prevents unusable files and avoids just the back and forth emails for, like, let's say missing attachments or anything. You'll see here in the example that we not only say what's the maximum file size, which can be anything that you want to, we could also say we won't even allow you to just upload any other of these file types, right? So these are the file types that in this media library upload we are allowing to, and if for any reason an applicant uploads something different, then it's not even going to let them move on, right? So just a quick blocker there. We could for uploads and for attachments, you could even validate the content of an upload, ensuring, for instance, that the file actually contains text or even more than one page. So we could do the file field page count and the field word count for the uploads, right? So think maybe they're uploading a resume and you want it to be just a one pager, or you're making sure that they actually have the text, at least more than one word that says test in a blank document. So that's something that we could also do by including these variables. Again, it's going to check before we go to the submission, before they submit it. So it's going to save us time instead of just having to download the file and making sure that it's actually one page or it has more than one word, right? So this helps just prevents applicants from uploading those placeholder documents just to bypass a requirement field, because sometimes we mark it as required and they still sort of upload something that it won't be usable, right? So that's another way to do it. Drafts and autosave. So let's encourage applicants to save draft and also us to take advantage of the autosave features, right? So draft just reduce the frustration from lost progress, and admins can just monitor incomplete applications to offer help early, right? So it's a simple change that just dramatically improves the completion rates of our applications. So it's just a quick button where they can save draft, and if they leave the application, then nothing is lost. And then also we could take it a step further by toggling this in your global settings. Keep in mind that if we toggle this on, it's going to be instance-wide. So it's going to be for every single form of your instance. However, the autosave is sometimes great even for us when we are doing just admin changes and we're, editing fields. We want to make sure that nothing is lost, even if we don't click that save draft, right? So the way autosave works is if I'm writing in a field and I move to the next one, once I make that change with my mouse, it's going to automatically save the previous field that I completed, or obviously every other field. So it's basically going to save the form as soon as I move down the form, right, by completing it. So again, quick win, but it just truly does reduce lost work and just frustration in the applicants. Conditional logic is about showing only what's relevant, right? And you may say, well, how does this prevent problematic solutions? It's because if an applicant, let's say, selects international project, then only then do you display additional questions about a country, or let's say translation requirements. It basically just shortens the form, just minimize confusion, and ensures that applicants won't fill in sections that just don't apply to them, right? Resulting, of course, in a problematic or incorrect solution, right? So I've included a screenshot of how we do it in the background, like the configuration of that. It looks sort of like a tree, where if I say, okay, delivery type, and if you click that option, then you're gonna have two things in the drop down, or drop down radio button, any multi-choice field. The two options are going to be live or virtual. So if I select that the delivery type will be live, then you'll see that I get this specific fields that are going to be related to what I need, right? We try to do this just because if you include maybe all the options and not leave them as mandatory, then it's going to be a problem by applicants that are saying, well, this actually doesn't apply to me. Do I just leave it blank? Just creates that question in the applicants that we don't want to have. So by just having these types of trees where things change depending on your previous answer, it's great to leverage. They're called dynamic field visibility controls, and you could do so in any of your modules or forms, even internally, right? So we have it for clients that are sometimes doing, call configuration and things like that. And then depending on their answers, your form will change if you configure these dynamic visibility controls. Progress indicators. So progress indicators, those little bars that you see here, or percentages, are surprisingly effective. Truly, they are. They show just applicants how far they have come and then how much is left. It's a small psychological nudge that helps them reduce the abandonment and just incomplete forms that, again, are going to clutter your system, forms that just stay in draft, by saying, okay, I only have 40% to go, or just I'm halfway done. Then again, it will give them the current, let's say that it will enable them to say, okay, let's finish this because I just have X amount to go. And it also lets them know whether they want to continue with the application or not, right? So again, reduces abandonment and just overall incomplete solutions. Okay, so I want to just do a pause again and just see if you have one error that you wish your current system could catch automatically, that of course it doesn't, because most likely one of the tools we have just reviewed could already probably fix that. And if not, of course, we're more than open to hear from you. But um, what we're sort of hoping is that some of these things that we have reviewed today will, take that and take your issue, take the number one error, and at least tackle it in a way where it doesn't become hazardous for you. And to that, I take it to the takeaway, right? The key takeaways that we see. So to wrap it up, preventing problematic submissions just saves you time, and it improves the fairness and just protects the data quality, right? So you have multiple layers of defense from mandatory fields, the smart checks, the tooltips, standardized answers, and just autosave. None of these features alone are truly complex, but together, we hope that it creates like a frictionless experience for applicants and reviewers who are just trying to have a enjoyable experience in SmartSimple on the system while filling out the forms, and not only again to the applicants but to you as well. Let's stop there. I know there's questions coming in. Carolyn, I know that you're sort of helping me out here, but
Yep.
before,
We've got a
yeah,
lot of good questions, Val.
great.
So I'll go through the ones I already answered. So number one was, will the recording be distributed
Yes,
to attendees? And I was like, so yes, it will.
yes.
We always try to do that. And then, does the call work with special advanced data table? So in this case, the um, what was being struggled with was that they in an advanced data table they're collecting budgets, right, and
Okay,
they want to make their revenues match their expenses. So
yes,
the answer to that, and I'm sure Val will agree with that, is that the best way to do that is with smart check validation. So you can do
absolutely.
smart check validation that says, hey, this total of this section has to equal this total of this section, and check it that way.
Yep, that's exactly it. That's it. That's how I would do it for sure.
And then does the duplicate prevention on the call, like you were demonstrating, Val, does
Yep,
it prevent block multiple draft applications from the same
yes.
organization or only prevents from submission? So it should prevent multiple drafts as well.
Yep. Yeah, because if you already have one application ongoing, then it's not going to even let you click the apply button again.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what stage basically the application is, it will prevent it from just having two applications on the same call.
And then the other question was, how do you get to the logic tree, right? So how do we get to the dynamic field visibility control files? So those are in the UTA itself under the grants tab. Val, can you navigate back to your screenshot for your slide on that one?
Yep,
And we can
absolutely.
take a deeper dive into that.
There it is.
Yep. So it's in the config settings of the UTA. And for instance, like if you wanted to add a dynamic field visibility control to an application, you would do it in the application tab. The one you can also enable them on activities like payment records or progress reports or things like that. And those would be in the activity tab right there.
So it just depends on where you want to add it. Like Carolyn said, even if you want, of course, if you want it as part of your application, you do it there. If you want to use it internally, maybe in your project manager or anything, then you would have to navigate to the config settings of that UTA. What we mean UTA for, I'm hoping we're assuming that everybody knows it's just the universal tracking application, which means just the module. So think application manager, project manager, meeting manager, those are all UTAs. So once you are in the actual main list view, you'll see a gear icon right on the top left corner, and that's where you will access the settings for that UTA.
Okay. If I have one question I enabled for multiple application types and only one application type needs additional logic attached to the question, will the question still work for the other application types? Or for the one that needs logic, does a separate question need to be created?
That's a great
So
question.
that's actually a really good question, I think. Um, so that one, the answer to that is you can actually on the dynamic visibility control file itself. Um, you can actually specify which application type it applies for. So if you only need it to apply to one application type, you can then only apply it to that. So you would not have to create duplicate fields for that.
Yep, that's correct.
And then is there a way to have the system automatically do a charity check when someone submits a proposal? Yes, you can. You would have to do it with a workflow. The charity check itself is always going to be stored on the organization record,
Yep,
but you can do a workflow to then trigger that charity check on the organization record when they submit an application.
that's
So
correct.
those are answered questions. Now we will go
Yes.
to open questions. Does
Okay.
using autosave slow down server speed in any significant way? And then are there any volume of applications considerations we should keep in mind? Some of our grant programs receive several thousand applications, which already slows down our system without autosave being turned on.
I
So,
don't believe so. Autosave should
mhm,
slow down speed, server speed. We would
mhm,
have to see what else is probably making the system load slower. Sometimes it's just a lot of variables that are being run, a lot of formulas on load. So if we are already experiencing probably server slowdown, it could be something else. But autosave shouldn't affect that because it's just like clicking save draft. Is
uh-huh,
that correct, Carolyn? Or true?
yep, correct. Okay. And then regarding the automatically save field values, if admin manually changes the status of an activity, would the information previously entered by the user be saved? Yes, that is correct. It would be saved if they manually change the status. And then wish there was a bulk charity check to check for 501(c)(3)s after application submission. So yeah, that was similar in nature to to Peyton's question earlier. So yes, essentially you could trigger that on application submission with a workflow. How do you link call fields with application fields, e.g., application duration limitation? That's a really good question. So you can link them in a couple ways. So on your Smart Check validation, you can always reference fields that are in the call. The other thing you can do as well, so say for instance, like you were very specific with your project start and end dates in your call. You could also pass those values to the project start and end date fields
Correct.
automatically instead of asking your applicants to type those in. So essentially, that would then pre-populate that data and reduce data entry as well on your applicants.
Correct.
Any plan to update the wiki to easily find this info? For example, type progress indicator in the search field and it does not return the page explaining how to set up the progress indicator. That is also on our radar to work at having some better trainings options out
Documentation.
there and then also updating our documentation so that
Yeah,
it is easier to find. We have heard you
absolutely.
all on that and it
Yes,
is on
it's
our
something.
roadmap.
Yeah, it's something that it's coming. We are definitely aware that not only for this information, but just overall, we want the wiki to be more accessible and just better overall. And even include not only written content, but also maybe videos or things that are, we already have some features and function video in our YouTube page. We definitely encourage you to sort of see what's already there and see if it's valuable. However, we are very much aware that we want to better this documentation in SmartSimple in general. So it's something that it's definitely coming in our roadmap, and you'll probably hear it tomorrow in the product roadmap presentation, which is basically everything that's coming. I did want have a couple more slides left. We have still time, so I thought we could do a little game time of everything that we sort of went over. I'll show you just a few examples of forms with issues, and your job would be to just spot what configuration could prevent that problem. Just reinforce how simple tweaks can prevent a lot of headaches, and see it in practice sometimes is so much better than just hearing the theory. So what do we actually mean when it comes to the actual form? and the changes that we're looking for you to hopefully make if there's some of these things that you currently have on your system, right? So this would be the first example. Again, it's form, an application form, and in the project overview tab, as you can see, I have some fields. So if you could spot something here that would be considered an error based on what we discussed today, any thoughts? I'm going to give it a couple minutes in the chat. And again, there's no, even if it's a wrong answer, we just want to hear from you and things that you sort of could see here that you, if you would have this form in your system, would probably change. Yeah, great. So we had a couple of correct answers. Multiple choice or select one for region questions. So as you can see here, even though we are saying the options, right, in the region that will have more impact, north, south, central, east, and west, there could be typos, right? I could say north, I could write north and just write it wrongly. And then when I'm trying to report on this, I'm going to have 4 or 5 or 6 different ways to spell north, right? So by just switching to this, it's going to better just the overall reporting, right? And save you some headaches. So applicants select from a predefined list instead of free text. And then hopefully we won't have any more headaches. And then if I want to take it a step further, if I want them to only select one, then I would switch this, of course, to a radio button so that not multiple choice can be selected. So that's correct. And thank you so much for answering that one. Here's another one. So this one, I think it's a little harder to spot, but hopefully, so again, it's in the project overview of an application. I have my project title, my project category, the project description, and the measurable impact of this project. Any issues that you could spot here, and again, when I mean issues, it's just things that are better configured, different way, or just adding something that will not only save you time, but also have the applicants sort of fill this out correctly. I'll just give it a couple minutes or a couple seconds, and then if there's no responses, I'll just go ahead with the. Great. So we're getting a lot of engagement, which is exciting. So 50 words, 500 words or less. As you can see in the project description, I have an instruction box that just says this project, describe the project in 500 words or less. I do include the word limit, right? And I have it in there very clearly there in the instruction of the field. However, if I'm not enforcing it, I could write here a 2,000 word essay and then be able to submit and have you be stuck with reading a 2,000 word essay, right? So by just actually enforcing it in that field configuration, so it's just an easy change. I go to the config of that field and then enforce that will be actually 500s or whatever it is. I probably have way more here. So just enforcing those word counts instead of just mentioning them on the field instruction. I have a couple more here. What do you think could be fixed or could be improved in the configuration? It's part again of the project overview of an application, and you'll see here some date fields, project details, and give it a couple minutes, seconds. I think this one is tough to spot, if I may add, because I tried it with some of my colleagues and they couldn't find it right away. We'll give you this one. It's just mandatory fields, right? So again, small change, but truly does go a long way. As you can see here, I ask for a proposed start date, end date, those and requested amount. Those are generally very important. And if I don't enforce the validation of that mandatory field, then we can bypass it. And we can overlook them. Applicants can be sort of involved in just filling out something else and then not fill out very, very important fields, right? So again, just adding that mandatory check, and that way prevent them from moving on. And then I believe this is the last one. What do you see here? So this is again an application form, but it's the supporting materials tab. And as you can see, we have a media library upload and then also some printed support materials upload. What do you see here? That could probably be fixed. Yes, validation and upload type. Perfect. So again, similar to what we did on the word counts, we include the maximum maximum file size and file type in the instruction boxes. So I say here the file type needs to be PDF and the file size needs to be this. However, if I'm not enforcing it like I do here in the library, media library upload, I can upload anything here and then just be able to go through, right? So, and then if I want to take it a step further, I could also do the variables that I showed before where you could count the pages and the actual words that are in the upload itself. So enforce all the attachment requirements instead of just mentioning them on the field instructions. Great. So thank you so much for playing and for just, coming to the webinar. We really, really appreciate your involvement. The big idea is that better submissions lead to better reviews. When you improve the quality of the data that's coming in, everything just downstreams and improves the analysis, the decision making, even relationships with the applicant, right? So again, we want to thank you for your time and we'll let Kleena probably just close it out.
Thank you, folks. Thank you so much, Val and Carolyn. That was great webinar. And thank you so much to everyone who submitted their questions as well. Just a reminder as well that we still have the last webinar in our series tomorrow, Product Roadmap. I have put a link there in the chat if you haven't signed up yet. So do please sign up and don't forget about Unite 2026. If there's any other questions regarding events, please reach out to me at events@smartsimple.com. So thank you so much. Thanks, Val. Thanks, Carolyn. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have
Bye.
a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye.